The reason most people struggle with studying isn't because they aren't smart enough, it's because they're studying the wrong way. You sit down, open a book, and before you know it, hours have passed. You feel drained, you barely remember what you read, and worst of all, you've wasted your time. But what if I told you that you don't need to study for hours to get top results? What if you could cut your study time in half and still learn faster than ever? That's exactly what you're about to learn. No motivational fluff, no vague study tips, just high impact strategies that will make studying so efficient that it feels illegal. The first thing you need to understand is that you're making studying harder than it needs to be. Most people waste time on low impact activities, rereading notes, passively highlighting textbooks, and writing pages of summaries. It feels productive, but in reality, it's the slowest and least effective way to learn. If you want to study faster, you need to flip the process. Instead of spending hours inputting information, reading, summarizing, watching lectures, you need to focus on output, actively recalling, testing yourself, and applying what you've learned. Research shows that active recall, forcing your brain to retrieve information instead of just reviewing it, is the most efficient way to retain knowledge. Instead of rereading a chapter, close the book and ask yourself, what were the key points? If you struggle to answer, you've found your weak points. That's where you focus. Another mistake, trying to learn everything. Most students spend way too much time reviewing what they already know. It's comfortable, it makes you feel confident, but confidence doesn't get you higher grades. Targeted learning does. The 80-20 rule applies here. 20% of what you study will give you 80% of the results. The trick is finding that 20%. Instead of blindly studying everything, identify high-yield topics, the concepts that show up the most in exams. Look at past papers, syllabus outlines, and teacher hints. Prioritize weak areas and heavily tested material. Imagine you're a miner searching for gold. If you dig randomly, you waste time. But if you focus on the richest vein, you maximize results with minimal effort. That's how you should study. Now let's talk about speed and efficiency. Most people study for too long because they don't set limits. They sit down thinking, I'll study until I'm done, which often means procrastination, distractions, and burnout. Instead, use time constraints to force efficiency. Parkinson's law states that a task will take as long as the time you give it. If you tell yourself you have 2 hours to learn a topic, you'll take 2 hours. But if you say I have 45 minutes, your brain will find a way to focus, absorb, and retain the key information in less time. Set a study timer and race against it. Challenge yourself to finish a chapter before the timer runs out. When you gamify the process, you force your brain to work at full capacity. Here's the final cheat code to studying insanely fast. Test first, study second. Most students review notes first, then test themselves. But the fastest learners flip the process. Start with a past exam paper or quiz. Try to answer as much as you can without looking at notes. Even if you get things wrong, this forces your brain to engage. When you go back to study, your mind is now actively searching for answers, which makes retention effortless. Mistakes aren't failures. They're shortcuts to faster learning. If you've been spending hours studying and not getting results, it's time to change the way you work. Focus on output, not input. Prioritize the 20% of material that matters. Use time limits to force efficiency, and always test before you study. The fastest learners aren't smarter than you, they just know how to study smart. Try these strategies today and you'll be shocked at how much faster you can learn. Now, what's the one thing you'll change in your next study session?